My Ice Queen girlfriend has a sick, possessive streak. Just because I spent 10 minutes scrolling through TikToks of hot girls in the car, Khloe Sterling's possessive side flared up, and she gave me an icy glare before kicking me out. My body went rigid, and as I looked up, I saw lines of text scrolling across my vision. Tisk, TSK. Our guy just paused on a video of a hot girl for 2 seconds, and Khloe's already losing it. Here we go again. Every time she gets jealous, she wants to break something, but she's too scared of frightening him, so she just acts tough and pushes him away. I absolutely live for this character type, an untouchable ice queen on the outside, but secretly an unhinged, possessive psycho for him and only him. After the comments faded, I numbly grabbed my bag and got out of the car in silence. The second the door shut, the sports car peeled out, and a light drizzle started to fall. I was walking alone, getting soaked, when the comments started rolling again. Ethan, just be a little sweet to her. Don't you get it? If you just kissed her, she's the type who would literally die for you. Khloe's probably red-eyed and flooring it on the freeway right now to blow off steam. She's miserable but has to keep up the Ice Queen act. It's killing me. Watching these comments flash by, I remembered the first time I ever saw them. 7 years ago, I passed out from low blood sugar and was carried to the campus clinic by Khloe, who happened to be walking by. I fell for her the moment I saw her. After learning her name, I started pursuing her relentlessly. My friends all told me to stop dreaming and give up, because Khloe was the campus's notorious ice queen, completely untouchable and uninterested in guys. Just as I was about to throw in the towel, the pop-up comments appeared. They started feeding me inside information. The truth is, Khloe is totally into him. She fell for him the second he passed out in her arms. She's just too proud to admit it because she loves the thrill of him chasing her. Every time he tells her he likes her, she's secretly ecstatic, but she rejects him coldly, just so she can hear him say it again later. And get this, she has a drawer stuffed with his photos that she looks at 100 times a day. This sudden flood of information made me so curious that I had to check. Sure enough, I snuck a look and found a stash of my photos in her desk. After that, with the comments as my guide, I never gave up, no matter how many times Khloe turned me down. In fact, every rejection just made me try harder. I knew she secretly cared about me, so even though it was tough, I was happy to do it. My persistence paid off and we eventually got married. But after the wedding, her coldness only got worse. She'd go on business trips without telling me. She was never around for our anniversary, and once, when I had a 102-degree fever, she refused to come home from the office. But each time, the comments would pop up right on cue. Heard Ethan was sick, and Khloe was freaking out at her office. She sent her assistant with medicine immediately. She watched over him all night while he slept and even stole a few kisses. She didn't sleep a wink, and so, I got through one miserable day after another, surviving on the love revealed in those comments. They all said she was madly in love with me, just too proud and emotionally constipated to show it, like a classic romance heroine who can't communicate to save her life. And I believed them over and over again. Today marked the 99th time Khloe had hurt me in the name of love. Standing there in the rain, I felt a weariness I'd never known before. I took a step forward, and a speeding car slammed into me from behind, sending me flying. I hit the pavement hard, bright red blood pooling beneath me as an agonizing pain shot through my entire body. My vision blurred, and just before I blacked out, a single thought echoed in my mind. I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. I don't know how long I was out, but I slowly opened my eyes to find myself in a hospital bed. A dull ache throbbed in my chest, and I couldn't help but groan. You're awake. The cool, familiar voice made me turn my head with effort. Khloe was sitting by my bed, her eyes red and swollen. When she saw I was awake, she instinctively leaned in, but then stopped herself, pulling back the hand that had been reaching for me. I tried to sit up, but the door to my room swung open. Khloe, here to see Ethan again? Dylan Prescott entered, wearing a doctor's coat and a gentle smile. Don't worry, I did the surgery myself. It was a complete success. Khloe's face immediately turned to ice. She quickly shoved a medical chart into her pocket. I'm not here for him. She picked up a thermos from the nightstand, her voice becoming intentionally soft. You were in surgery all day yesterday. I brought you some soup. Dylan's eyes lit up as he took it, pleasantly surprised. You made this just for me? Khloe hummed in agreement, expertly pouring a bowl, blowing on it to cool it, and lifting it to his lips. Be careful, it's hot. Dylan took a sip, then said pointedly, Khloe, this piece of chicken is too big for me to eat. After a brief pause, Khloe actually took the chopsticks from him and ate the piece of chicken herself. I watched the whole thing in silence, my nails digging into my palms. The comments appeared right on schedule. She's lying again. She spent 4 hours making that soup for Ethan. She completely lost it when she heard about the accident. She pulled strings to clear traffic all the way to the hospital, flew in the best surgical team in the country, and hasn't left his bedside in days. But the second he's awake, her pride kicks in and she puts the act back on. This Dylan guy had a huge crush on her in college, but she never gave him the time of day. She's only acting close with him now because she saw Ethan talking to another woman last week and got insanely jealous. Dylan started hitting on her again, so she's using him to make Ethan jealous. I looked at the comments and felt a bitter sense of irony. For 7 years, I'd been a fool, holding this broken relationship together with nothing but these phantom words. Lost in thought, I didn't notice Dylan approaching my bed with the bowl of soup. "Ethan, you should have some too," he said with a smile. The sight of it made my stomach turn. "No, thanks." "Come on, don't be like that," Dylan urged, pushing the bowl closer. "It'll help you get better." I said no. I swatted his hand away, accidentally knocking the bowl over. Scalding soup splashed across my bandages and the back of Dylan's hand. I doubled over in pain as fresh blood soaked through the gauze. Khloe rushed toward me in a flash, but stopped just short of my bed and turned to Dylan instead. She gently took Dylan's hand, her voice dripping with concern. "Does it hurt? Let me take you to get that treated." Then she turned to me, her gaze freezing. "Dylan was just trying to help you. Not only were you ungrateful, you hurt him. That's going too far, Ethan." I watched her lead Dylan away without a single glance back, as the comments kept rolling. "She's only mad because Ethan refused her soup. She's actually dying inside with worry. She's just taking Dylan out of the room, so she can get a doctor in here to check on Ethan's wound." The words felt like daggers in my heart. For 7 years, I had relied on these comments, using them to convince myself to forgive her coldness and cruelty. But real love shouldn't need a narrator, should it? Tears streamed silently down my face. In that moment, I finally made my decision. I pulled out my phone and made a call. "Hello, Mr. Evans? I need you to draw up divorce papers for me." The moment I mentioned divorce, the comments exploded. "What kind of plot twist is this? Why does he suddenly want a divorce? No, Khloe loves him so much. This will destroy her. Yeah, she just can't express herself. She's crazy about him. She hasn't done anything wrong. Why is everyone panicking? Relax, he's just angry. He's trying to scare her. He's loved her for years. He's not actually going to leave." As the comments reached a consensus, I couldn't help a bitter, self-deprecating smile. Maybe Khloe thought the same thing, which is why she kept pushing my boundaries. But I'm not her possession. My love for her could only withstand so much coldness before it started to fade. An hour later, the lawyer delivered the papers. He informed me gravely, "Mr. Hayes, once your wife signs this, you just have to wait out the 30-day cooling-off period, and then the divorce will be final." I nodded and put the papers in my bag. I spent the next few days recovering in the hospital. Khloe never visited again, but every time I went for a checkup or to the pharmacy, I'd see her fussing over Dylan. On the day I was discharged, I left without a word to her. Back home, I started packing up everything that reminded me of Khloe, planning to throw it all out. The dresses I'd bought her that she never wore. The photos of us where she always looked miserable. The matching couple's mugs and slippers she'd always scorned. The comments started up again. "He's throwing everything out. If Khloe finds out, she's going to be devastated. She secretly loves all that stuff because he gave it to her. She's just pretending she doesn't care. She probably has it all carefully stored away somewhere." Even in the photos where she looks like an ice queen, she's secretly smiling on the inside and fighting the urge to hold his hand. Her act is so convincing she's even fooled him. I didn't care anymore if Khloe was just acting or if she genuinely felt nothing. I decisively tossed the boxes into the dumpster outside. The heavy thud of them landing startled Khloe, who had just walked through the door. She stood in the foyer, her face draining of color. "What are you doing?" Her voice was tight with suppressed rage. "Who gave you permission to throw my things away?" I didn't even look up, my voice chillingly calm. "I bought them. Since you obviously don't want them, what's the problem?" Khloe opened her mouth to say something, but was cut off by Dylan bursting in. "Khloe," he panted, holding up a necklace. "You left your Van Cleef arpels at my apartment." He sensed the tense atmosphere and added sheepishly, "Sorry, are you two fighting? I can go." Dylan turned to leave, but Khloe stopped him, which was unusual for her. "We're not fighting, just getting rid of some junk. You're a guest, come on in." She then warmly ushered Dylan inside, made him coffee, and gave him a tour of her study, wine cellar, and music room. When he suggested they play a piano duet, she eagerly agreed, playing song after song with him. He complimented her artistic talent, so she immediately set up an easel and sketched his portrait. He mentioned wanting to see a movie, so she sat with him on the couch, discussing the plot and hanging on his every word. I watched it all, and each moment felt like another needle in my heart. The scrolling comments insisted she was only doing this to make me jealous, that while she was playing piano, sketching, and watching movies with Dylan, she was really thinking of me. The irony was crushing. I had asked her to do all those things with me countless times over the years, and every single time, she had shut me down with a stony expression. Back then, I believed the comments. I thought she refused because she was afraid of letting her guard down and showing me how she really felt. But seeing her do all of it with Dylan without a second thought, I finally understood. A love that can't be expressed is a love that doesn't exist. I forced down the bitter feeling in my chest and went to my room, trying not to care what they were doing. That evening, Dylan knocked on my door. He said Khloe was taking him to a Michelin-starred restaurant and wanted to know if I'd join them. I said no, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. He walked right into my room, still trying to convince me while fiddling with a bracelet on my desk. Khloe already made the reservation, just come with us. We all went to college together. Out of all the guys who chased her, you're the one who actually won over the Ice Queen. Why are you playing hard to get? If I were with her, I'd never treat her this way. I frowned, about to fire back, when I saw him suddenly snap the diamond bracelet my late mother had left me. For a second, my blood ran cold, then it boiled over. I lunged forward and grabbed his wrist. You did that on purpose. He casually shook my hand off. On purpose? I just thought it looked nice. I didn't know it was such cheap junk it would break if you touched it. Where'd you get this? A flea market. How much was it? I'll pay you for it. He pulled out his wallet, threw a few $10 bills in my face, and sneered, Is $40 enough? There, I paid you. Now the bracelet's mine. As he said it, he reached for the broken bracelet. I'd had enough. I shoved him with all my might. Get lost. Just then, we heard footsteps in the hall. A flicker of calculation crossed Dylan's eyes. He let out a sharp cry and threw himself against the wall. Blood started to trickle from his forehead, stark against his skin. That's the scene Khloe saw when she rushed in. Dylan was on the floor, his face covered in blood, while I stood frozen, clutching the broken bracelet. Khloe, he said weakly, reaching a hand out to her. I just broke Ethan's bracelet by accident. I tried to pay him for it, but he just wouldn't let it go. Khloe rushed to Dylan's side, helping him up. Her gaze, when it met mine, was glacial. Ethan Hayes, you'd attack someone over a bracelet? Don't you think that's a little extreme? He started it. He broke my bracelet. Was I wrong to stand up for myself? Dylan is our guest. You're being petty and vindictive with absolutely no class. Is that how you were raised? Every word she spoke was a dagger in my heart. I looked over at Dylan, nestled in her arms, and he shot me a triumphant smirk. In that moment, everything I'd been holding back for so long finally exploded. Khloe Sterling, that was the bracelet my mother gave me before she died. You were there in the hospital room, you saw it. You promised her you would take care of me. How have you been doing that all these years? I screamed the questions at her, desperate for her to drop the act and just be on my side for once. Just this once. But her only response was to help the now unconscious Dylan out of the room, leaving in a hurry. The rest of my words died in my throat. I closed my eyes, completely defeated. The warmth in my hand faded until it was ice cold. I sank to the floor and the comments, which had been absent for a while, started to roll again. I think he's really heartbroken this time. Too bad he doesn't know she was secretly thrilled to see him finally get jealous and lose his cool over Dylan. She just couldn't let it show. Exactly. She rushed Dylan out of there because she was worried he'd get seriously hurt and Ethan would face criminal charges. She just won't say anything, so of course he's going to misunderstand and think she likes Dylan. This is only going to hurt him more. I read the words and started to laugh, a hollow, painful laugh. I carefully collected the pieces of the bracelet and went out to find someone who could repair it. Took 2 days, but the bracelet was returned to me, perfectly restored. I finally breathed a sigh of relief, went home, and slept properly for the first time in ages. When I woke up, I had over a dozen taunting messages from Dylan on my phone. The photos showed Khloe changing Dylan's bandages, frantically looking for specialists to prevent scarring, lighting his birthday candles and singing to him softly, and even bidding millions on a watch at an auction and putting it on his wrist herself. The comments quickly explained she was just placating Dylan to keep him from pressing charges. But I was already numb. I didn't feel anything. I was trying to figure out what to do with myself when I got a call from an old college friend, inviting me to a reunion. Knowing Khloe never went to things like that, I agreed to go. But the moment I pushed open the door to the private room, my world stopped. Khloe was sitting on a sofa in the corner, with Dylan pressed up right beside her. She even took a drink that someone had offered to Dylan and downed it herself. I knew it. Wherever Ethan goes, Khloe will find a way to be there. And that leech Dylan follows her everywhere. So shameless. Hey, don't be so harsh. Without Dylan, we wouldn't get to see Ethan get jealous and Khloe secretly loving it. Dylan's definitely going to start something. I can't wait for the drama to unfold. Reading those comments, my heart sank. I had a very bad feeling about this. And just as the comments predicted, Dylan soon roped Khloe and a few other old friends into a game of truth or dare. Khloe lost the very first round. Her dare was to let everyone look through her phone. Everyone knew we'd been together for years, so they were all excited to get a glimpse into our relationship and see the Ice Queen's softer side. But when they opened her photo gallery, it was empty. Her notes were blank. Her iMessage history with me was nothing but one-word replies like K and okay. It was painfully obvious to everyone that even after all this time, Khloe didn't love me. 7 years and not a single photo together. The room went silent. My old friends just stared at each other, not knowing what to say. Dylan looked thrilled. He seized the opportunity to ask, Khloe, you and Ethan have been together forever. How is it possible you have nothing about him on your phone? You don't forget your anniversary or his birthday, do you? You do celebrate them, right? Khloe's eyes flickered before landing on my pale face. To me, every day is just another day. There's nothing special to celebrate. Each word was a perfectly aimed dagger to my heart, leaving me speechless with pain. As the awkwardness became unbearable, a friend quickly tried to salvage the mood by starting a new round. Dylan lost this time. His dare was to play the Pocky game with someone in the room. The second he read the card, his eyes went straight to Khloe. Khloe, he said softly, I know you better than anyone here. Help me out with this dare. The mood in the room shifted instantly. Everyone looked at me, then started trying to talk him out of it, saying it wasn't right because Khloe was married and he should pick one of the guys. Relax, it's just a game, Dylan said, tugging on Khloe's sleeve while shooting me a defiant look. Ethan's a good sport. He won't mind, right? As he kept pressing, Khloe casually glanced over at me, seemingly waiting to see how I'd react. I just kept my head down, saying nothing, pretending I hadn't seen or heard a thing. The seconds ticked by, and her expression grew darker and darker. The comments started flashing frantically across my vision. Say something, Ethan. If you just say you're not okay with it, she'll back out. She listens to you. She's waiting for you to get jealous. How can you not react at all? You're just making it worse. I didn't move a muscle. Finally, Khloe let out a cold sneer, took the Pocky stick, and said, Fine. The room gasped as they started the ridiculous game. The chocolate stick got shorter and shorter, their faces drawing closer. Just as their lips were about to meet, Khloe tripped and fell into Dylan's arms, their lips connecting in a kiss. The room erupted. I shot my head up, my eyes locking with Khloe's stunned expression. Felt like a physical blow. My fists were clenched so tight my knuckles were white, but I forced myself to keep a calm expression. Khloe looked flustered for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure, pushed Dylan away, and changed the subject. It was an accident. Game on. My friends, sensing the tension, tried to move on to the next round, but I couldn't stay. I stood up and walked toward the door on unsteady legs. Khloe made a move to follow, but Dylan stopped her. This is my fault. I'll go talk to him. Khloe, I don't want to cause another fight between you two. Khloe hesitated for a second, then gave a slight nod, letting him follow me out. The second we were in the hallway, Dylan grabbed my arm at the top of the stairs, his voice dripping with arrogance. It was just a kiss. You can't even handle that? And here I thought you were tough. But what does it matter if you're mad? Khloe doesn't give a damn about you. You've been clinging to her for years. She's so sick of you, she can't even be bothered to pretend to care anymore. You're pathetic, still following her around like a lost puppy. I ripped my arm from his grasp, my voice like ice. What happens between me and Khloe is none of your damn business. And everything you just said about me, it applies to you too. I hope you realize you're just a pawn in her game, so don't get too comfortable. Let me tell you something. Even if we did get divorced, she would never, ever choose you. With that, I turned to walk down the stairs. Dylan's face flushed with anger. In a moment of blind rage, he shoved me. I tumbled all the way from the 3rd floor down to the landing by the 1st floor utility closet, my body hitting every step on the way down. I lay there in a pool of my own blood, trying to call for help, but the sounds were just choked, helpless gasps. No one came. The pain washed over me in waves, each one worse than the last. My voice faded to a whisper, and my vision started to go dark. With the last ounce of my strength, I managed to call Khloe's number. I called again and again, but every call went straight to voicemail. She was rejecting them. Just as I was about to give up hope, the comments appeared. Dylan told Khloe that Ethan got jealous and went home. She's secretly pleased and has no idea how badly he's hurt. She's even rejecting his calls to keep up her "I don't care" act. What's going to happen to him? What's going to happen? Either I bleed out right here, or I somehow survive this and cut her out of my life for good. That was my last thought before I lost consciousness. The next time I woke up, it was noon. I could feel someone holding my hand tightly. I blinked my eyes open and saw Khloe, her own eyes completely bloodshot. The second our gazes met, she snatched her hand back as if she'd been burned. The complicated emotions on her face vanished, replaced by her usual mask of cool indifference. I knew she was putting on an act, but I didn't say anything. Fighting through the pain, I tried to sit up to get some water, but I accidentally knocked my briefcase off the nightstand. It hit the floor and everything spilled out. Seeing me struggle to get out of bed to pick everything up, Khloe quickly bent down and started gathering the scattered items. The last thing was a thick sheaf of papers. She picked them up with a frown and glanced at the top page. The words "divorce agreement" stared back at her in bold letters. My heart skipped a beat, and I snatched the papers out of her hand. The sudden movement made her freeze. Her eyes narrowed, focusing on my trembling hands. "What is that? Why are you so nervous?" "It's a purchase agreement for a house. I need your signature." I avoided her eyes, trying to keep my voice steady as I grabbed a pen and held it out to her. The pen hovered between us. Khloe didn't take it. Her cool gaze was locked on my face. "Give me one good reason why I should sign this." The air grew thick. The damn comments started scrolling again. She just wants him to give her an easy way out, to sweeten the deal a little. Why is he being so dense all of a sudden? Can't he read between the lines? This is a divorce agreement. If she signs it, our ship is sunk. He's not trying to convince her because deep down, he doesn't want the divorce. I looked down. After a moment, I softened my voice, falling back into the old, familiar pattern of placating her. "Our housekeeper said you haven't been sleeping well. I thought a quiet place out in the suburbs would be good for you. Is that a good enough reason?" A flicker of something complex crossed her face, but she didn't ask any more questions. She signed the paper with a quick, clean stroke. Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion. "Text me the new address on moving day. You can handle the rest. Don't ask me about it again." I quickly tucked the signed agreement away and didn't say another word. After I got out of the hospital, I shipped my boxes and started the process of dividing our assets. Khloe never came home during that time, but she was constantly posting on Facebook. Pictures of food from fancy restaurants, scenic views from mountain hikes, romantic sunsets over the ocean. And a few minutes after each of her posts, Dylan would post a photo from the exact same place, a not-so-subtle announcement that they were together. I knew she was doing it all for my benefit, trying to get a reaction out of me. But I felt nothing. I just calmly scrolled past, never once asking where she was or what she was doing. As the days went by, Khloe must have sensed something was off, because she finally came home. The moment she walked in, her eyes were glued to me, searching my face. She even started telling me about her week, making sure to emphasize her little getaway with Dylan, staring at me the whole time, trying to find any trace of jealousy or hurt. But I just gave a non-committal nod. My calm reaction made her frown, a note of frustration creeping into her voice. "What's wrong with you? You seem completely checked out." I looked up at her, and a flood of memories washed over me. For years, I had been her shadow, tirelessly orbiting her, just hoping that one day she would finally let her guard down and be real with me. A single "I love you too" would have been enough. But all I ever got were her cruel games, her endless tests, and her complete emotional indifference. A profound exhaustion settled over me, so heavy it felt hard to breathe. I stopped hiding how I felt. For the first time, I told her the truth. "I'm only human, Khloe. I get tired. No one can keep pouring everything they have into something and get nothing back. You can't just self-destructively give and give forever. Once the love is gone, there's nothing left to care about." As I spoke, her expression grew colder and colder, until it was frozen solid. She shot up from her chair and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. And right on cue, the comments started to roll. "It's over." He said all that, but all she heard was the last part. "She thinks he doesn't care about her anymore. Now what? She's going to shut down and sulk." Seriously, Ethan, you know how sensitive she is and how she overthinks everything. Why would you say something like that to her? A heavy weariness settled in my eyes. I sighed. Haven't I been considerate enough for the past 7 years? And all my consideration ever got me was indifference and pain. Who was ever considerate of me? I ignored her and went back to packing my things. At 3 in the morning, the shrill ring of my phone woke me up. I groggily opened my eyes to see a text from Khloe's sister. It was an address with a short message. "Khloe's had way too much to drink. Can you come get her? Out of habit, I got dressed and drove over. The address was a hotel. The door to the room was slightly ajar, and a terrible feeling washed over me. I pushed the door open, and my heart dropped. Dylan was on top of Khloe, his clothes a mess, his hands fumbling with the buttons of her blouse. Her neck was covered in hickeys, her face was unnaturally flushed, and her eyes were glazed over. She was completely out of it. It was obvious she'd been drugged. Seeing the panic in Dylan's eyes, I knew instantly he was responsible for this. Rage flooded my senses. I lunged forward and punched him, sending him sprawling to the floor. He scrambled up, ready to fight back, but I stared him down, my voice like ice. What you're doing is a felony. This room has cameras. You're going to prison for this. The color drained from Dylan's face. He scrambled to his feet and fled the room. My heart, which had been pounding in my throat, finally settled. I went to help Khloe up to take her to the hospital, but the next thing I knew, her feverish hands were clamped around my waist. Her hot breath was on my neck, her lips brushing against my cheek. "Ethan, baby," she murmured, "let me kiss you." Seeing her so out of control and miserable, a million thoughts raced through my head, but I gritted my teeth, broke free from her grasp, and got her to the hospital. I stayed by her bed all night, until my eyes were completely bloodshot. But when Khloe woke up, she looked at me with that same cold indifference, ignoring my questions about how she was feeling. The comments started up, narrating her inner monologue for me. He wouldn't sleep with her to cure her, so now she's mad and giving him the silent treatment. She finally makes a move on him after all these years and he pushes her away? Total buzzkill. No wonder she's pissed. Reading the comments, I understood why she was angry, but I was too tired to explain myself. I changed the subject. What are you going to do about last night? What Dylan did was a crime. You can press charges. A corner of her mouth twitched into a sneer. Her voice was biting. Press charges? He just saw that I was suffering and wanted to help. He meant well. If I call the cops on him, I'd be ruining the reputation of someone who was just trying to be kind. I stared at her, incredulous, my heart sinking. So even if Dylan planned the whole thing, even if he drugged you, you're not going to do anything about it? She looked away, her expression cold as she defended him without a hint of shame. He just likes me so much that he did something impulsive and irrational. He wasn't trying to kill me or steal from me, so why should I punish someone who cares about me? Not everyone is as cruel as you, watching me suffer like that and refusing to help. Just as she finished her sentence, her phone rang. It was Dylan calling to apologize. Khloe immediately stood up and walked out into the hall to comfort him in hushed tones. I was left alone in the room, staring at the comments scrolling wildly across my vision. The truth is, she knew Dylan drugged the drink. She drank it willingly and had her friend call Ethan over because she wanted to see him get jealous and lose his mind. She just wanted proof that he loved her. She figured it was a perfect chance to sleep with him and they'd naturally make up afterwards. Too bad he's so dense. Now she's back to feeling insecure and second-guessing everything. The sudden revelation sent a chill through my entire body. I started to shake uncontrollably. My nails dug into my palms, the sharp pain the only thing keeping me grounded. I should have known. It was just another one of her elaborate tests. I closed my eyes, thankful that I had already made my preparations to leave. In the days that followed, I moved like a ghost from one government office to another, closing bank accounts, changing my legal address, canceling my phone number. I was systematically erasing every trace of myself, preparing to vanish completely. My plan was simple. The moment the divorce was final, I would disappear from Khloe's world so completely that she would never be able to find me. On our anniversary, the house was dark and empty. No candlelit dinner, no thoughtful gifts like in years past. Just me sitting silently by the window. When Khloe came home to the cold, empty house, her expression hardened. "Did you forget something?" I didn't look up, my voice was flat. "Our anniversary? You never cared about it before. No need to start now." Her eyes darkened. Without another word, she turned and walked out. The comments, as always, appeared right on cue. "Wrong thing to say, Ethan. She was waiting all day for you to do something, and you just shot her down. Of course she's upset. She's probably going out to get drunk now." I didn't care anymore. I grabbed my bag and left. I met my best friend, Marcus, at a coffee shop. After some small talk, I got straight to the point. "Marcus, I need you to arrange a private jet for me. As soon as the divorce is final, I'm leaving the country. I don't want anyone to know where I'm going, especially not Khloe." Marcus knew how much I'd suffered in the marriage, and he agreed without a moment's hesitation. I thanked him and was heading home when Dylan and a few of his buddies blocked my path. Maybe all the attention from Khloe had gone to his head, because Dylan was more arrogant than ever, taunting me right there in public. Well, look who it is. Don't you clean up nice for a pathetic loser? Ethan Hayes, I thought you couldn't bear to be away from Khloe for a second. What are you doing out here all alone? Did she finally kick you to the curb? I told you she never loved you. She was just settling. It was only a matter of time before she threw you out. I kept my mouth shut and tried to walk past them, wanting to avoid a scene. But Dylan wouldn't let it go, his insults getting nastier and nastier, until he started in on my parents. That was it. The rage I'd been suppressing for years finally boiled over. Punched him hard. The next thing I knew, his friends were on me. I fought back, but it was 4 against 1. My vision started to swim. Stop! The familiar voice made everyone freeze. We all turned to see Khloe standing at the edge of the crowd. Her beautiful face was dark and stormy, and she was radiating an intimidating aura. Dylan's face changed in an instant. He put on a wounded expression. Khloe, I just ran into Ethan and said hello, and he started screaming at me, and then he hit me. My friends were just trying to defend me. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have let him get the wrong idea about us. Maybe we should stop seeing each other. Her eyes landed on me, and her pupils constricted. My hair was a mess. There were bloody scratches on my face, and my collar was torn. Her hands, hanging at her sides, were trembling slightly. A storm of emotions crossed her face as she looked at me, as if she was waiting for me to say something. But I just stood up straight, my face a blank mask, my lips pressed into a thin line. The silence stretched on, a slow torture that seemed to be wearing away at her patience. Finally, she spoke, her voice cold. Since he hit you first, you can hit him back. A flicker of triumph crossed Dylan's face as he raised his hand, aiming for my cheek. The comments exploded, a wall of text filling my vision. She's only mad because he's getting beat up and is still too proud to ask her for help. Ethan, just say the word. She wouldn't just teach these guys a lesson. She'd burn this whole place down for you. Why are you so quiet? Say something. Anything. She'll back down if you just speak. I lifted my head and met Khloe's icy gaze. 7 years. Hadn't I done enough explaining? The sharp crack of a slap echoed in the sudden silence. For a split second, Khloe's expression froze, but it was quickly replaced by her usual mask of detached indifference. My head snapped to the side, my cheeks stinging, but my heart felt like a frozen lake, completely still. I looked steadily at Khloe, my voice calm. Is that enough? Are we even now? Can I go? I saw her swallow hard, her fists clenched at her sides, knuckles white. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. I turned and walked away, and with every step, I felt more certain. Behind me, the comments were going wild. She regrets it. She's dying inside. She's completely broken. Go back and comfort her, Ethan. But I never turned back. Khloe stood frozen, watching me walk away until I disappeared around the corner. She never said a word to stop me. She never came after me. The day I left, I was up early to pick up the final divorce decree. The moment I arrived at the courthouse, the comments exploded. Oh my God, he's really doing it. He's actually getting the divorce. But I thought he loved her more than life itself. Why is he giving up now? And she's crazy about him too. They were supposed to be endgame. How did it come to this? No, my ship is sinking. Does Khloe even know he's serious about this? She's going to have a complete meltdown when she finds out. I watched the frantic text scroll by, but my heart was a dead, calm sea. I felt nothing. The clerk stamped the final decree and handed it to me. As soon as the papers were in my hand, the comments vanished. My world was finally quiet. Back at the house, I took one copy of the decree and placed it inside Khloe's secret room. I took one last look at the room, its walls covered with my photos and portraits, shelves filled with things that reminded her of me, and then I gently closed the door. When I turned around, Khloe was standing right there. Seeing where I'd just come from, she panicked. You were in there? What did you see? My expression was placid. I shook my head, just grabbing some files from the study on my way out. She saw the papers in my hand and visibly relaxed, quickly changing the subject. You're moving out today? I haven't seen any of your boxes. I lied without missing a beat. I already moved everything. Khloe still looked suspicious and was about to say she wanted to come with me to see the new place when her phone rang. It was Dylan. Khloe, I'm getting a party started. You should come. She put him on speaker, her eyes flicking over to me. She was obviously waiting for me to object, to ask her to stay. But I just smiled. Go have fun. The movers can handle everything here. Her face turned to stone, but with no outlet for her anger, she just bottled it up and left for the bar. The moment her car was out of sight, I turned, hailed a cab, and headed for the airport. An hour later, a private jet was climbing into the sky, and I was gone, In the hazy, glaring lights of the bar, Khloe downed one drink after another. The alcohol burned in her veins, but it couldn't touch the cold knot of frustration in her chest. The noise of the crowd was a muffled roar, as if coming from behind a thick wall of glass. The only thing that was clear was the image of my calm, almost cold, face. "Khloe, slow down. You're going to be wasted," a friend said, reaching for her glass. Khloe shoved her hand away. "Leave me alone." Her voice was sharp. She grabbed the bottle and started drinking straight from it. She drank until her consciousness fractured and the world started to spin. Vaguely, she felt someone helping her to her feet. She thought she heard Dylan's voice. "Khloe, I'll take you home." She tried to pull away, but her limbs were heavy as lead. She gave up and let the darkness take her. The next morning, a sliver of sunlight pierced through the curtains, and a splitting headache woke her up. She opened her eyes with a frown, her vision slowly coming into focus. And then she froze. She was lying in the arms of a man, her hair spread across his bare chest. Her heart seized, and an icy dread shot through her. She called out the first name that came to her mind. "Ethan." The man beside her moved, and she saw his face. It wasn't me. It was Dylan. Her pupils contracted. She shot up and shoved him away. "What are you doing here?" He looked startled, then his voice turned syrupy sweet. "Khloe, you were insatiable last night. You couldn't get enough of me. Don't you remember?" The color drained from her face. She stared at him, searching for any sign that he was lying. But he just looked down, his voice laced with feigned hurt. "You wouldn't let me go. You said you wanted to be with me forever." "Shut up," she snapped, her voice like ice. She threw back the covers and scrambled out of bed. Her clothes were strewn across the floor. Her head was pounding, and last night was a complete, terrifying blank. The alcohol had clouded her judgment, but a voice deep inside her was screaming. Impossible. I would never cheat on Ethan. She took a deep, steadying breath, her voice low and tight. "I would never sleep with you. The only person I want is Ethan. I know exactly what you're trying to do, setting this up to make me think something happened. But it's not going to work. I will never, ever divorce him." Dylan's head snapped up, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Khloe, what are you saying? You love Ethan Hayes? That's impossible. How could you love him? Then what about me? What was I to you?" She gave him a look so sharp it could cut glass, and he fell silent. She picked up her clothes and walked to the door without a backward glance. "You," she said, "were just a tool I used to make Ethan jealous. Nothing more." The color drained from Dylan's face. Khloe drove home like a maniac, her thoughts a tangled mess. She slammed on the brakes in the driveway and ran inside, but the house was eerily silent. She called my name, but her voice just echoed in the empty living room. Her heart sank. She ran upstairs and threw open the bedroom door. The bed was perfectly made. Her breathing grew ragged. She pulled out her phone and called me, but it went straight to a cold, automated message. "The number you have dialed is not in service." Her fingers trembled as she sent a flurry of texts, but none of them delivered. A panic unlike anything she had ever felt seized her. She forced herself to be calm. He wouldn't leave. He was just angry. He'd be back in a few days just like all the other times. All she had to do was wait for the man who loved her more than anything to come home. Khloe sat at her desk, her fingers drumming a restless rhythm on the polished wood. It was the third day, and still no word from me. Her phone screen lit up and went dark, over and over, but my name never appeared. She no longer listened for the sound of my footsteps at the door. On the fourth morning, she sat at the dining table, staring at my empty chair, a painful tightness spreading across her chest. She rubbed her temples, and suddenly, strange lines of text flashed in her vision. How is she still just sitting there? He's really gone. This is killing me. If she doesn't go after him now, he'll disappear for good. Khloe shot to her feet, her chair screeching against the floor. She stared into the empty air where the text had been, but it was gone. "What was that?" she whispered. In the hospital's psychiatric ward, the doctor spoke calmly. "Miss Sterling, all your tests came back normal. Your brain CT is clear, and there are no issues with your nervous system." Khloe stared at the report, her brow furrowed. "Then why am I seeing things that don't exist?" The doctor chose his words carefully. "It could be a mild hallucination brought on by extreme stress. I recommend you get more rest, try to relax." Khloe gave a short, bitter laugh and walked out. She nearly collided with Dylan right outside the door. He was holding a stack of lab results, and his face lit up when he saw her, as if their last encounter had never happened. "Khloe, what are you doing here?" His expression shifted to one of concern. "Are you okay? Do you need me to?" Khloe didn't have the patience to even pretend to be polite. She walked right past him, but he hurried to catch up, his voice cheerful. I just saw Ethan downstairs in the lobby. She stopped dead in her tracks. Where? She demanded, turning to face him, her voice dangerously quiet. Dylan smiled. In the main lobby. He looked like he was in a hurry, though. Didn't seem to be in a great mood. I called his name, but he just ignored me. Before he could finish, Khloe was already striding toward the elevators. The hospital lobby was crowded, but Khloe scanned every face, every corner, searching for me. But I wasn't there. A dark thought crossed her mind. So he was lying about disappearing. Over the next few days, Khloe started making the rounds at every high-profile social event. She deliberately took Dylan to the fanciest restaurants, letting him drape his arm over her for photos. She went with him to an auction and bought him an expensive watch, fastening it on his wrist herself. She even let him post their pictures on his Facebook with suggestive captions. She went through the motions of it all with a blank face, but afterward, she would stare at her phone, waiting. But my name never appeared on her screen. A week later, Khloe couldn't stand it anymore and drove to my parents' house. The moment she opened the door, her heart sank. The corner of the sofa where I always sat was empty. My favorite tea set was gone from the coffee table. The mug I always used was missing from the kitchen counter. Even my slippers were gone from the entryway. The house was so quiet it was as if I had never lived there at all. She stood there, frozen, and then she remembered the boxes I'd thrown out. She ran to her car and drove straight to the city landfill. But the attendant just shook his head. Ma'am, anything from last week is long gone. There's no way to find it now. She stood before a mountain of garbage, her hands shaking uncontrollably. On the drive back, her housekeeper called. Miss Sterling, a package arrived for Mr. Hayes. She slammed her foot on the gas. When she tore open the thin manila envelope, a single document slid out. The divorce agreement. She stared at my signature. It was clean, decisive, without a hint of hesitation. Where is he? Her own voice was a raw, unfamiliar croak. The housekeeper shook his head. Mr. Hayes only said to expect a delivery. He didn't say where he was going. Suddenly, she remembered something. She ran upstairs and threw open the door to the secret room. Her eyes fell on a drawer. With a trembling hand, she pulled it open. Inside was a dark, official-looking document. The divorce decree. She opened it and saw her own signature. She looked around the room, dazed, at the hundreds of photos of me staring back at her from the walls. She realized then that my calm expression that day had been a mask for a final goodbye. The world started to spin. She slowly sank to the floor, her fingers crushing the divorce decree. Ethan, she whispered. Miss Sterling. The housekeeper's voice pulled her back to reality. She slowly got to her feet. He noticed her eyes were now rimmed with red, and something about her had fundamentally changed. She looked down for a moment, then picked up her phone and called her assistant. Find him. Use every resource we have. I want to know where Ethan is. Now. The next day, at the Sterling Corporation headquarters, her assistant stood before her, trembling. Ms. Sterling, he left the country on a private jet. The flight plan is completely sealed. We can't find him. The office was silent. Khloe stood, her jaw tight. After a long pause, she finally spoke. Useless. She walked to the window, her frustration palpable. Her assistant quickly offered her a flash drive. But we did find some security footage. It's of Mr. Hayes and Mr. Prescott. She spun around. The projector flickered to life. On the screen, Dylan, no longer the charming man he pretended to be for her, was arrogantly blocking my way. Well, look who it is. Don't you clean up nice for a pathetic loser? The scene cut to Dylan's friends, laughing in the coffee shop. I heard he brought her breakfast every day for 3 months straight. What a simp. The cruel laughter filled the silent office. Khloe's expression was impossible to read. Her assistant held his breath. Her knuckles were white. She shot up from her chair, grabbed her keys, and ran out of the building. She was about to ring the doorbell at Dylan's apartment when she heard voices from inside. That loser Ethan Hayes is finally gone. It was Dylan's voice, coming through the door. You guys should have seen him. He looked like a kicked puppy. I slapped him and he didn't even flinch. I heard he chased her for 7 years. That's dedication. Dylan laughed. That's not dedication, that's being pathetic. Following her around like a shadow. Khloe couldn't stand him, but she couldn't get rid of him. She kicked the door open. Dylan and his 3 friends leaped to their feet, startled. The smirks were still on their faces. On the coffee table was a cake with "Good riddance, Ethan Hayes," written in frosting. Khloe, Dylan stammered, his face white as a sheet. Her eyes landed on the cake. She smiled, a chilling, humorless smile. Perfect. She turned and walked out. Behind her, Dylan called her name, his voice cracking, but she didn't even turn around. In a dimly lit bar, Khloe slammed her glass down on the table. "Tell me the truth," she said to her friends. "What did you all really think of Ethan?" The table fell silent. "He was devoted," one of them said carefully. "Yeah," another added. "He brought you breakfast every single day when he was trying to win you over. And when you had that awful flu, he didn't sleep for 3 days, just stayed by your side." Khloe slammed her glass down again. "I'm asking what you thought of us." Her friends exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, Jessica, the oldest of the group, sighed. "Honestly, Khloe, we all thought you were too good for him. He just seemed desperate." "You're wrong." Khloe shot to her feet, sweeping a glass off the table. "I love him. Do you have any idea the things I did for him?" Her voice trailed off as she saw the looks on their faces. They were staring at her as if she'd grown a second head. "You love him," Jessica repeated, incredulous. "Then why did you never bring him anywhere with us? Why were you always out of town on business for his birthday? Why?" The questions came one after another, each one a fresh stab. Khloe opened her mouth, but she had no answers. She sank back into the couch as her friends recounted years of my devotion. "Remember that torrential downpour our sophomore year? He ran across campus in it just to bring you an umbrella. When you were starting your company, he secretly sold the house his parents left him to fund it. And what did he get in return? You forgot your anniversary. You humiliated him in front of our friends. You flirted with other guys right in front of him." Khloe's head was pounding. As her friends stared in shock, she stumbled to her feet and ran out into the night. Back at the house, the master bedroom was empty, but she could have sworn she could still smell the faint scent of my cologne. She sat by my side of the bed, her fingers brushing against the half-finished bottle of water on the nightstand. She opened the drawer and found a notebook. Her heart began to race as she opened it with trembling hands. Day 1000. She forgot, of course, but it's okay. The comments say she actually remembers. She's just waiting for me to make the first move. Fever of 102 today. Called Khloe. She said she was too busy at work to come home. But the comments told me she secretly stood outside my hospital room all night. The journal chronicled 7 years of my descent from understanding, to self-doubt, to utter despair. The last entry read, "Maybe she really does love me, but real love shouldn't need a narrator to confirm it. Goodbye, Khloe Sterling." As the sun began to rise, she sat in the same position, watching the morning light slowly fill the empty room. In the mirror, she saw her own red-rimmed eyes, and behind her, the large wedding portrait hanging on the wall. In the photo, her face was a blank slate, while my smile was painfully bright. A single tear fell onto the open page of the journal, blurring the ink. It was only then that she realized she was crying. The first real emotion she'd shown in 7 years, and it was too late. At dawn the next day, Khloe was standing outside Dylan's apartment. She knocked, a sharp, controlled rap of her knuckles against the door. When it opened, Dylan's sleepy expression turned to one of delighted surprise. "Khloe, what are you?" His surprise vanished the moment he saw her face. She didn't give him a chance to speak, just pushed past him into the apartment and threw a thick file onto his coffee table. Security camera stills, audio recordings, transcripts, pharmacy records. The evidence was spread out in the morning light like a silent indictment. "Explain," she said, her voice chillingly calm. The color drained from his face, but he quickly forced a smile. "What's this supposed to prove? That Ethan is mentally weak? How is that my fault? You broke his mother's bracelet on purpose. He pushed me first. You humiliated him in public at that cafe. I was just telling the truth." Dylan's voice rose, his face twisting into an ugly sneer. "Everyone knows he spent 7 years chasing you like a pathetic dog. He's a laughingstock." Her eyes went dead cold. She advanced on him slowly, backing him up against the wall. "And you think I approved of this? Didn't you?" He shot back, his voice trembling but laced with a sick sort of triumph. "You never pushed me away. You saw the pictures I posted on Facebook and you never said a word. Even that night at the hotel." "Enough!" She grabbed him by the throat, her grip so tight he gasped in pain. She stared at his face, filled with revulsion. "You are going to pay for this." She released him. As she walked away, he slid to the floor, a bone-deep chill settling over him. That afternoon, in a conference room at St. Jude's Medical Center, the hospital director's voice echoed off the walls. "The board has voted to suspend Dr. Dylan Prescott from all medical duties, effective immediately. We have received numerous patient complaints, and the evidence is irrefutable." Dylan shot to his feet, his chair screeching backward. "This is a setup. I'll appeal." He looked around at his colleagues, but none of them would meet his eye. The director slid a file across the table. These are formal complaints from 3 separate patients. Allegations include improper prescription practices, accepting bribes. Dylan grabbed the file, his hands shaking as he flipped through the pages. Suddenly, it all clicked into place. He grabbed his bag and ran from the room. In the top-floor boardroom of the Sterling Corporation, the board members were listening to the quarterly report when the doors were thrown open. Everyone turned. Dylan stood there, hair a mess, eyes bloodshot. "Khloe Sterling, how could you do this?" The woman at the head of the table held up a hand, pausing the presentation. She leaned back in her chair, steepling her fingers under her chin, her expression serene. "You ruined my career," Dylan screamed, his voice echoing in the vast room. "All for that worthless piece of trash. What was so special about him? 7 years, and he couldn't even melt your icy heart." A few of the board members exchanged looks and quietly slipped out of the room. When the door closed behind the last one, Khloe finally spoke. "This is only the beginning." 3 days later, in the basement of a secluded house in the suburbs, a rustling sound broke the darkness. Dylan was blindfolded. The ropes around his wrists had rubbed his skin raw. He'd lost all track of time. All he knew was that every time he started to drift off, someone would splash him with ice water. "Let me out, please." His voice was a raw croak. "I'll apologize. I'll leave the city." The sound of a heavy door opening made him flinch. Footsteps stopped in front of him. He smelled her perfume. "Khloe, is that you?" He tried to lunge forward but lost his balance and fell. "I know I was wrong. I'll never." The blindfold was ripped from his face. The sudden, harsh light made his eyes water. Through his blurry vision, he saw her looking down at him, her eyes completely devoid of emotion. His pupils contracted, and he started to laugh, a hysterical, broken sound. "Fine, I did it. So what? Are you telling me you're innocent in all this? You let it happen. Every time I hurt him, you just stood there and watched. You're the one who pushed him away." Her expression became terrifying. She knelt and put her hand on his throat. "You're right," she said, her thumb stroking the frantic pulse in his neck. "And now we're both going to pay the price." As the bodyguard replaced the blindfold, he heard her last words before the heavy door shut. "Let him have some time to think." The air conditioner hummed. Dylan huddled in the corner, the rope burns on his wrists already turning a deep purple. For 3 days, no one spoke to him. Once a day, someone would come in and subject him to the same torments he had inflicted on me. Today, it was a man in black gloves, holding a bowl of steaming soup. He walked over to Dylan without a word. "No, please." Dylan's voice was a raw whisper. He tried to scramble away, but his back hit the cold, concrete wall. He had nowhere to go. The man ignored his pleas and threw the scalding soup on him. The pain was excruciating. He screamed as the hot liquid seared his neck and arms, instantly raising red welts. He shook with pain, tears streaming down his face. The man just watched him for a moment, then turned and left. The door closed, plunging him back into darkness. He lay on the floor, his skin on fire, and he remembered the hospital room and the bowl of hot soup he had accidentally spilled on my bandages. On the 5th day, they brought him to the top of a staircase. He was still blindfolded, but he could feel the edge of the top step under his feet. He knew what was coming next, and his breath hitched in his throat. Just as his nerves were stretched to their breaking point, a hand shoved him from behind. He tumbled down the stairs, the sound of his bones hitting the concrete floor making a sickening crunch. Pain exploded through his body. He curled into a fetal position, blood from a gash on his forehead running down his face. "Does it hurt?" Khloe's voice, cold and sharp, came from the top of the stairs. He looked up, trembling. He couldn't see her, but he knew she was there, looking down on him. "You're insane," he rasped. She laughed, a soft, chilling sound. Her footsteps faded away. "More tomorrow," she said. On the 7th day, he was tied to a chair, flanked by 2 large men. "Miss Sterling heard you like to throw punches," one of them said. "So she sent us to return the favor." A fist connected with his jaw. His head snapped to the side, his mouth filling with the taste of blood. A second punch made his ears ring, and his vision swam. The blows came one after another, and he started to lose consciousness. On the 10th day, Khloe returned. Dylan was a wreck, his face a mess of bruises, the burns on his skin beginning to fester. When they took off his blindfold, he squinted in the sudden light, his eyes taking a long moment to adjust. She sat across from him, her elegant designer dress a stark contrast to the grim basement. "I hear you've been suspended," she said, her voice measured. 3 patients filed a formal complaint. Bribery, improper prescriptions. I believe the medical board is opening a formal investigation tomorrow. His pupils dilated in shock. You did this. You faked the evidence. She stood, looking down at him. Someone will take you back to the hospital tomorrow. Like I said, this is only the beginning. At St. Jude's Medical Center, Dylan stood in an operating room, his face as white as his coat. His hands were still bruised and shaking, his mind so foggy he could barely hold a scalpel. Doctor, his pressure is dropping, a nurse said urgently. Dylan snapped out of his daze and realized his hands were shaking uncontrollably. He looked at the patient hemorrhaging on the table, and suddenly he was dizzy, the memory of scalding soup and falling down the stairs overwhelming him. The scalpel clattered to the floor. In a remote monitoring room, Khloe watched it all on a screen, her face impassive. She picked up her phone. You can notify the family. The day he was fired, Dylan walked out of the hospital carrying a cardboard box of his belongings. The incident in the operating room had been ruled a major case of malpractice. His medical license was revoked. His career was over. He hadn't even made it to the parking lot when a crowd of people surrounded him. He's the one who killed my father. My sister could have walked again if it wasn't for him. The angry family members of his former patients shoved him to the ground, the contents of his box spilling onto the pavement. Someone grabbed his hair and slammed his head against the concrete. In the chaos, someone struck him hard in the throat with a heavy object. He let out a strangled cry, and then silence. He would never speak again. Meanwhile, in Napa Valley, California, I was pruning roses in my garden, the sun warm on my white sweatshirt. Suddenly, a few lines of text scrolled across my vision. Wow, Khloe really destroyed Dylan. Well, he had it coming. He was a total monster to Ethan. I heard his vocal cords were crushed. He'll never speak again. My hand paused for a moment. Then I calmly set down my pruning shears, walked over to a wicker chair, and picked up my cup of tea. A light breeze carried the scent of roses through the garden. I looked out at the rolling, vine-covered hills, and the flickering text in my vision finally faded to nothing. I pushed open the windows of my small cottage, and the sunlight streamed in, warming the hardwood floors. Barefoot, I walked out into the yard to water my new rose bushes. New, is he really not going back to her? Khloe's finished with Dylan, and now she's drinking every day. She's not even going into the office anymore. Ethan is being so cruel. The lines of text drifted across my vision. I paused, set down the watering can, and went back inside. For the last 6 months, the comments have been a constant shadow, popping up to give me updates on Khloe. How she destroyed Dylan using his own tactics against him. How she started drinking night after night. The comments seemed convinced that hearing all this would make me go back to her. But I just ignored them, focusing all my energy on my new life. I learned how to bake croissants. I learned how to paint the Napa sunsets. I even learned how to fix the leaky roof on my cottage. The comments started appearing less and less frequently. Sometimes a whole day would go by without a single one. It was as if the distance between us was finally weakening the connection. Until one rainy evening, I was walking home from the farmer's market, and I saw a small figure huddled by my front gate. She was soaked to the bone, her blonde hair plastered to her forehead. She looked like a stray kitten. "Hello," I said, stopping a few feet away. She looked up, her face smudged with dirt, and her blue eyes were startlingly bright in the gray rain. "Oh, thank God, a person," she said, her English tinged with a British accent. "My wallet and phone were stolen. Could I possibly use your phone?" I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Come on in." The fire crackled in the hearth. Wrapped in a blanket and sipping a cup of tea, the woman introduced herself. "I'm Alice. I was planning on backpacking through Northern California, but on my very first day," she made a helpless gesture. "Anyway, thank you. I think I would have ended up sleeping under a bridge tonight if it wasn't for you." I pushed a plate of toast toward her. "What did the police say?" She scratched her head, a little embarrassed. "They took a report, but, it's not exactly a high-priority case." A brief silence fell between us. I noticed her backpack was frayed and the soles of her hiking boots were separating, but despite all that, she radiated a kind of vibrant energy, like a sunflower. She suddenly put down her tea and pressed her palms together. "I have a huge favor to ask." I said, leaning back slightly. "Can I stay here? Just for a few days," she said in a rush. "I can do yard work, fix things, I can cook. I make a killer shepherd's pie. As soon as my friend wires me some money, I'll be out of your hair, I promise." When she saw me frowning, she added quickly, "I can sleep in the garage, or I can pitch my tent in the yard." Wow, this new girl is so bright and cheerful. I like her. No way, Ethan belongs with Khloe. The sudden comments made me pause. Alice saw my hesitation and misinterpreted it as a rejection. She seemed to deflate, the light going out of her eyes. For some reason, she reminded me of my neighbor's golden retriever puppy from when I was a kid, always so full of life. There's a small loft upstairs. Her eyes lit up. You mean it? Oh my God, you're an angel. I swear, I'll be the best tenant you've ever had. Do you want me to trim those hedges for you right now? Or I couldn't help but smile. Let's eat first. Over dinner, she told me story after story about her travels, about getting lost in the Himalayas, about being chased by piranhas in the Amazon. Her smile was so bright, I didn't even realize that the comments had only appeared once that day, and then not again. That night, as I lay in bed, I could hear her singing, completely off-key, from the loft upstairs. Moonlight filtered through the curtains, making patterns on the floor, and I realized, for the first time in 6 months, I was about to fall asleep without thinking of Khloe. The morning sun was streaming into the kitchen when I heard a rustling from the yard. I looked out the window and saw Alice by the rose bushes, a small trowel in her hand, happily turning over the soil. She heard the window open and looked up, giving me a wide grin. Morning. The soil out here is really compacted, so I thought I'd loosen it up for them. I gave her a small nod and turned to make coffee. In the 2 weeks she'd been here, Alice had turned my quiet little cottage upside down. There was a wind chime made of shells she'd found hanging on the porch, a bouquet of wildflowers on the table every morning, and she'd even cleaned out the old fireplace, lighting a fire in it every night. By the time the coffee was ready, she had washed her hands and was sprawled on the living room floor, poring over a tattered old guidebook. She was wearing a wrinkled flannel shirt and her jeans were stained with grass, but she looked happy. It was nice. She held up the guidebook triumphantly. The farmer's market has lavender honey today, and a goat cheese tasting. Want to go? I slid her coffee across the table and shook my head. Still no, she sighed dramatically. You've been in Napa for 6 months and you haven't even been to Lake Berryessa? My fingers traced the rim of my mug. She was right. For the past 6 months, I'd been living like a hermit in this little cottage. You're always cooped up in here, she said, leaning closer, her blue eyes looking right into mine. Is something wrong? The directness of the question caught me off guard. Khloe had never asked me anything so straightforward. She always made me guess, made me work for it, made me exhaust myself trying to decipher her moods. It would do you good to get out, Alice said softly, but her words rippled through my quiet existence. Okay, I have to admit, this girl's got game. That was a smooth move. No, he belongs with Khloe. The comments floated by and I frowned out of habit. But strangely, I wasn't annoyed this time. Maybe it was because Alice's gaze was so open and honest, as clear as the California sky. Okay. Alice stared at me for a second, then let out a whoop and jumped to her feet, nearly knocking over her coffee. Let's go. Right now. I'll be your tour guide. The water at Lake Berryessa was an impossible shade of blue. I walked barefoot along the shore, watching her splash around in the shallows. She'd rented a bright yellow kayak from somewhere and was determined to teach me how to use it. No, you have to twist your wrists, like this. She reached around me from behind to guide my hands, and she smelled like sunshine and pine needles. I suddenly remembered teaching Khloe how to bake a cake years ago, my hands over hers. She'd been so stiff and cold, not even reacting when she got frosting on her sleeve. Hey, Earth to Ethan. Alice snapped her fingers in front of my face. Look what I found. She opened her hand. In her palm was a heart-shaped stone, glowing faintly pink in the sun. Here, she said, pressing it into my hand. My grandmother always said these bring good luck. You should smile. The gift was so simple. It wasn't an apology or a way to make up for something. It was just a nice thing. That evening, at the bustling farmer's market, she dragged me from stall to stall like an excited puppy. She broke a piece of honey cake in two. You have to try this. The guy who runs the stall uses honey from his own bees. The sweetness melted on my tongue, and I closed my eyes, savoring it. Suddenly, she reached out and gently wiped the corner of my mouth with her thumb. You've got a little frosting. The casual intimacy of the gesture made us both freeze for a second. The tips of her ears turned bright red. Oh, look, she said, quickly changing the subject. They have lavender sachets over there. I watched her walk away, a small smile playing on my lips. The kind of affection I'd needed a constant stream of commentary to believe in was as natural and obvious as sunlight with her. That night, we sat on a hillside and watched the stars come out. Like a magician, she produced 2 glasses and a bottle of wine from her backpack. After a few glasses, she started to open up, telling me about her embarrassing moments studying art history at Yale, about getting lost in the desert in Arizona and nearly being arrested for trespassing, about her eccentric uncle who owned an antique store in Santa Fe. I listened quietly, sipping my wine. I know who you are, you know, she said suddenly. I saw one of your paintings at an auction in New York once. She looked up at the stars. It was called City Rain. I stood in front of it for a whole hour. My hand froze halfway to my lips. I turned to her, stunned. That was just a student piece I'd done in college. I donated it to the university when I graduated. I had no idea it had been sold at auction. The man in the painting, she said softly. It felt like he wasn't just standing in the rain, felt like he was the rain. It reminded me of you. The wind rustled through the vineyards around us. And I realized the comments hadn't appeared once all day. She tilted her head, the whole night sky reflected in her eyes. Want to drive down to the coast tomorrow? See the ocean? I nodded without hesitation. In that moment, I wasn't thinking about the past or worrying about the future. I was just letting this bright, vibrant girl pull me back into the world. And so the days passed, one after another, peacefully. I walked out of the bakery with a bag of fresh bread, a small smile on my face. They were almond croissants, Alice's favorite. She could eat 3 of them in one sitting. Ethan, the familiar voice cut through the quiet afternoon like a bolt of lightning. I froze. The bag slipped from my fingers, croissants scattering across the cobblestones. I slowly lifted my head. Khloe was standing just a few feet away. She was wearing a designer dress that looked completely out of place in our sleepy little town. She was thinner than I remembered, and her eyes were bloodshot. The moment our eyes met, her lips pressed into a thin, hard line. I finally found you, she said, her voice a raw whisper. She took a step forward. I instinctively took a step back, bumping into someone behind me. It was Alice. She put a steadying hand on my shoulder. What's wrong? Khloe's gaze turned to ice. She strode forward and pushed Alice's hand off my shoulder. Who are you? She demanded. I finally found my voice. What are you doing here, Khloe? Alice stepped in front of me, her expression firm but polite. Excuse me, miss, but who are you? Khloe ignored her, her eyes locked on me. Shouldn't I be here? Ethan, I was wrong. Please, just come home with me. I saw the desperate hope in her eyes. I turned to Alice, my voice quiet but firm. She's no one important, just a stranger. The color drained from Khloe's face. She grabbed my wrist. A stranger? Ethan, we're married. I pulled my arm away. Not anymore. You signed the papers. I didn't know what I was signing, she cried, her voice rising, drawing stares from people on the street. If I had known, I never would have. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. You wouldn't have signed them? Khloe, it's always the same with you. You only realize what you have when you're about to lose it. Alice gently squeezed my hand. Do you want to go home? Khloe's eyes, now bloodshot, darted down to our joined hands. She stepped between us, blocking Alice's path. Stay away from my husband, she said to Alice, her voice low and dangerous. Ex-husband, I corrected her, my own voice cold. Ms. Sterling, I'm asking you to leave, or I will call the police. The words seemed to physically wound her. She swayed on her feet. Her voice dropped to a near whisper, a desperate plea. Ethan, I know I was wrong. I'll change. I'll be whatever you want me to be. Please, just come home. For a second, her pleading tone through me. The proud, untouchable Khloe Sterling, begging. But the moment passed. I shook my head. Home? Maybe once. But not anymore. Not for me. With that, I took Alice's hand and walked away. Late that night, I was packing a suitcase on the floor of my room. Alice leaned in the doorway. Are you sure you want to leave? Because I could just go punch her in the face for you. I shook my head. If she found us here, she won't give up that easily. I paused in my folding. I'm sorry I dragged you into this. She knelt to help me pack my art supplies. So where to next? Santa Fe? New Orleans. I looked up at her. Moonlight from the skylight caught in her blonde hair, making it shine like a halo. I'd known her for less than 2 months, but in that moment, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. Wherever you go, I said softly, I'll go with you. Her eyes lit up. At the San Francisco airport, I kept glancing toward the security line. Alice had gone to check our bags, leaving me with the carry-ons. Ethan, where are you going? The voice came from behind me, and my blood ran cold. Khloe, stop him. Don't go, Ethan, please. I'm crying. They love each other. Why is this happening? The comments flooded my vision, a dense wall of text blocking everything out. I squeezed my eyes shut. When I opened them again, Khloe was standing right in front of me. Her voice was shaking. I was wrong. All those years, I shouldn't have tested you like that. I shouldn't have kept hurting you. The final boarding call for our flight came over the intercom. I grabbed my bags. Khloe grabbed my arm. At least tell me where you're going. The comments were coming faster now, blurring my vision. I pulled my arm free, stumbling, and Alice, back from the check-in counter, caught me. "Are you okay?" she asked, steering me toward the security gate, keeping a wary eye on Khloe. Khloe tried to follow, but a sudden surge of passengers blocked her way. From her perspective, the comments were now a frantic, unreadable blur, completely obscuring her view. By the time she pushed through the crowd, all she saw was my back disappearing down the jet bridge. A few days later, in a small town in New Mexico, the morning fog hung low over the quiet streets as the wheels of my suitcase rumbled over the flagstones. Alice walked beside me, her backpack slung over her shoulder, occasionally glancing behind us. "I saw her," she whispered. "She was standing outside our door until 3 this morning." My grip tightened on the handle of my suitcase. For the last 2 weeks, no matter where we went, she was there like a ghost. I'd go to the bakery, and she'd be standing on the corner. I'd be sketching in a cafe, and she'd be sitting at a table across the street. I'd get up in the middle of the night for a glass of water, and I'd see her, a silent silhouette, standing outside our gate. The roar of an engine shattered the morning quiet. A black sedan screeched to a halt in the middle of the road, blocking our path. The door flew open, and Khloe got out, her eyes shot with red. "Why do you keep running away?" she demanded. "Why won't you give me another chance? Why won't you even say a proper goodbye?" I sighed. "I thought I already did." She grabbed my wrist. "I don't accept that. I know I was wrong. Just tell me what I have to do." "Let go of him," Alice said, stepping forward and forcing Khloe's fingers off my arm. Our 3 shadows tangled together in the morning light. Khloe sneered at Alice. "Who the hell are you?" "This is between my husband and me." "Ex-husband," Alice corrected her, stepping in front of me. "You're divorced. And no matter how sorry you are, it doesn't change what you did to him. You left him in the rain. You humiliated him in public. You let other people hurt him." "Shut up." Khloe swung at her, but Alice dodged the blow. I laughed. "See? You can't even stand being ignored for a few weeks. I put up with it for 7 years." I opened the passenger door for Alice. "Let's go." Khloe just stood there as we drove away. The morning fog dampened her clothes. She touched her cheek and was surprised to find it wet with tears. 3 days later, at a small farmhouse in the countryside, I was organizing my new art supplies when I heard a low rumble of thunder. The summer storm came on fast and hard. One minute it was sunny, the next it was a downpour. Alice closed the curtains. "She's still out there," she said quietly. "She's been standing in the rain for 3 hours." The paintbrush I was holding snapped in my hand. I went to the window and peered through the rain. She was standing outside the fence, completely drenched, staring up at my window. Around midnight, a knock on the door woke me from a light sleep. It was Alice holding a blanket. "She's running a fever," she said. "She's shivering." I didn't say anything, but she understood. She took the blanket and went outside. In the rain, Khloe's lips were blue, but her eyes were still fixed on my window. Alice tossed the blanket at her. "Don't you dare pass out on our doorstep. I've seen your type before. You think punishing yourself is going to earn you forgiveness." Khloe stumbled toward her. "Let me see him." Alice pushed her back. "Do you have any idea that he still has nightmares about you? He screams your name in his sleep." The words were like a knife in Khloe's heart. "Ethan," she screamed, "give me one more chance." The door opened. It was me, my face grim, my phone to my ear as I called the police. By the time the police arrived, she was a mess, rain and tears mixing on her face. "What do I have to do?" she asked, her eyes red and raw. "What will it take to make you come back?" I looked at the woman who had once seemed so powerful, so untouchable, and I said quietly, "Nothing short of turning back time, and we both know that's impossible." As the sirens grew louder, her phone rang. It was her secretary, her voice frantic. "Miss Sterling, Dylan's friends went to the police. They're accusing you of kidnapping and unlawful imprisonment. The police are opening a formal investigation." The rain washed over her pale face as she watched me walk away, and she finally understood that this time, she had really and truly lost me. But eventually, the rain always stops. I sat in the sunroom, my brushstrokes creating a field of golden wheat on the canvas. Outside, Alice was pruning an olive tree, humming an out-of-tune Italian folk song. The trial started, but she only did it for him. She was getting revenge for Ethan. How many years is she going to get? The suspense is killing me. The comments swarmed across my vision like a plague of locusts. I closed my eyes and calmly dipped my brush into the turpentine to clean it. "What's wrong?" Alice asked, coming in from the garden, her hands still covered in dirt. I shook my head, but then a news alert pinged on the tablet she'd left on the table. "Prominent CEO Khloe Sterling on trial for assault and kidnapping charges." Alice quickly swiped the notification away, but not before I caught a glimpse of the courtroom. In the brief image, Khloe was wearing a gray jumpsuit with dark circles under her eyes. Her normally perfect hair was a mess. "Do you want to follow the story?" Alice asked quietly. My paintbrush hovered over the palette for a moment. "No." In the courtroom, the prosecutor pressed play. "Please. I'm sorry. I know I was wrong." Dylan's terrified screams filled the room, punctuated by the sharp crack of slaps. The jurors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. One woman covered her ears. "This recording was taken from the basement of the defendant's property," the prosecutor said, his voice cold. "We also have medical reports confirming the victim was held against his will and systematically tortured for 12 days. Khloe's lawyer immediately objected. "My client was under extreme emotional distress, brought on by the victim's prolonged psychological abuse of Mr. Ethan Hayes." The judge banged his gavel. "The defendant will answer the question. How do you plead?" All eyes in the courtroom turned to her. She lifted her head, and the corner of her mouth twitched into a small, strange smile. A murmur went through the gallery. The prosecutor frowned. She didn't seem to hear him. She was muttering to herself. "Ethan likes honey in his tea in the morning. He bites his lip when he's concentrating on a painting. His knee aches when it's about to rain." The judge banged his gavel again. "Ms. Sterling." She looked up at the judge. "I'm guilty," she said clearly. "Guilty of all charges." On the day of her sentencing, the first snow of the season began to fall. I sat by the fire, wrapped in a wool blanket, watching Alice roast chestnuts. Over the crackle of the fire and the popping of the chestnut shells, the news on the TV droned on. Sentenced to 3 years in prison. Shares of Sterling Corporation plummeted 15% today, a record low. How can he not even react? She did all of this for him. Go back and save her, Ethan. I'm sorry, but if he doesn't forgive her after this, he's just heartless. The comments scrolled frantically. I picked up the remote and turned off the television. The firelight flickered across my face, revealing a brief, almost imperceptible flicker of emotion in my eyes. 3 days later, there was a letter in our mailbox with no return address. Alice held it up. Should I open it? I tossed a handful of chopped onions into a hot pan, the sharp smell filling the kitchen. "Burn it," I said. Alice knelt by the fire and tossed the letter into the flames. Just before the paper turned to ash, she caught a glimpse of the first line. "Ethan, I learned how to make your favorite tiramisu." Meanwhile, in a prison visiting room miles away, Khloe stared at her secretary. "Did he get the letter?" The young woman hesitated, then shook her head. Outside, the snow was coming down harder now. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass of the partition. She suddenly remembered a boy, years ago, standing outside her dorm in the rain, holding a bag with her favorite breakfast inside. There had been such a light in his eyes then, a light that was now gone forever. When the guard came to lead her away, he noticed that the once powerful CEO's shoulders were shaking. No one heard the quiet sob, lost in the silence of the empty room. The sunset over the Aegean Sea painted the white walls of the village in shades of honey and rose. I stood on my toes to hang the closed sign on the door of our small cafe. A cool breeze slipped through the door, ruffling my hair. 3 years passed. Alice poked her head out of the kitchen, a dusting of flour in her blonde hair. "We're sold out of the blueberry cheesecake. That old woman from Paris said it was the best she's ever had, even if it was made by an American." A small smile touched my lips as I walked over to the easel by the window. The blues and whites of the Aegean swirled on the canvas, but it felt incomplete, like something was missing. Alice wrapped her arms around me from behind. "Zoning out again?" she murmured, her chin on my shoulder. She pointed to the canvas. "I think it needs a little boat. A boat. The kind for lovers running away together," she said, her blue eyes sparkling in the twilight. "Like us." I gave her a playful nudge with my elbow, but she caught my wrist. Like a magician, she produced a crayon from her pocket and drew a crooked little boat in the corner of the canvas, complete with 2 stick figures. "A masterpiece by Alice, the master artist," she declared with mock seriousness. "It's priceless." I finally laughed. In the 3 years since I'd left, I was still quiet, still hated crowds. But Alice was the exception. She was like a stubborn beam of sunlight, finding its way into the darkest, dampest corner of my soul. Late that night, she gently shook me awake. "Dress warm," she whispered in my ear, her voice thick with excitement. "I want to show you something." We drove north in our old, beat-up pickup truck. I was wrapped in a blanket in the passenger seat, half asleep. She slammed on the brakes. "We're here." Before us was a deserted cliff overlooking the Aegean, shimmering silver in the moonlight. And in the sky above, the aurora, Alice cried, throwing her hands in the air. The news said there was a chance we could see it in northern Greece tonight. I can't believe it's actually happening. Ribbons of green light danced like silk across the sky. I tilted my head back, my breath catching in my throat. I never imagined I'd see the magic of the Arctic Circle from a cliff in the Mediterranean. Alice, I said. When she turned, I was on one knee, holding out a simple ring I had woven from an olive branch. Alice, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Thank you for loving me for who I am, for never trying to change me. You love me when I'm quiet and when I laugh, when I want to hide from the world and when I want to see it all. The aurora danced behind her, making her blue eyes glitter like sapphires. The wind seemed to die down and the world went still. She looked back at me, her own eyes full of love, and held out her left hand. Her ring finger looked so delicate in the moonlight as she waited for me to slide the ring on. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the simple ring. When I finally managed to slide it onto her finger, the lights in the sky flared, a brilliant, silent explosion of color, as if the universe itself was celebrating with us. Khloe's out of prison. A single line of text flashed across my vision, then crackled and vanished like static from a dying radio. I froze for a second, and then a real, genuine smile spread across my face. I leaned in and kissed the woman I was going to spend the rest of my life with. Behind us, the last ribbon of light faded from the sky. On the eastern horizon, the first hint of dawn was breaking. 3 months later, a rainy night in London, Khloe Sterling stood before the large window of an art gallery, a newly published collection of paintings in her hands. The cover was a painting of a sunset over the Aegean. In the corner was a crudely drawn little boat. She opened it to the dedication page. In small print, it read, "For Alice, my sunshine, thank you for loving me for who I really am." Summer rains in the city always came without warning. Khloe stood at the window of the boardroom, watching the rain blur the city skyline. 3 years in prison had etched fine lines around her eyes and hollowed out her cheeks, leaving her looking older, worn. "Ms. Sterling, the equity transfer agreement," her secretary began. "The board has voted unanimously." "I know," she cut him off, the scratch of her pen filling the silence. She walked out of the skyscraper without an umbrella, letting the downpour soak her to the skin. For the first time in 3 years, she felt light. The gilded cage she had built for herself, the one made of money and power, was finally gone. Following the address she'd found in a magazine, she made her way through a labyrinth of whitewashed alleyways. The scent of coffee drifted on the sea breeze, and she stopped. There, under the cafe's sign, was Ethan, wiping down the chalkboard menu. He was dressed simply, in a t-shirt and jeans. A tourist was complaining about a mistaken order, but Ethan just smiled and shook his head, the corners of his eyes crinkling in a way that was exactly the same as the day she'd met him, when they were 16. Her nails dug into her palms, and the old, familiar ache started up in her chest. The glass door flew open, and Alice bustled in, a whirlwind of energy with flowers still dusting her blonde hair. She wrapped her arms around my waist and stood on her toes to kiss me. Sunlight streamed through the doorway, catching the simple wedding band on my finger and making it glint. Khloe stumbled backward, knocking over a terracotta pot. I looked up, our eyes met, and for a moment the world seemed to stop. "I'll be right back," I murmured to Alice, then stepped outside. Khloe's voice was a raw whisper. "If we could just go back." "There's no going back, Khloe," I said, my own voice quiet. "Time only moves forward." Alice called my name from down the alley, holding up a bag of groceries. As I turned to go to her, the hem of my shirt brushed against Khloe's fingers. She reached out as if to grab it, but her hand closed on empty air. She watched as I took the bag from Alice, our fingers lacing together as we smiled at each other. The setting sun cast our shadows long before us, until they merged with the twilight at the end of the alley. Khloe stood there, motionless, until the sea breeze had dried the tears she hadn't realized she'd shed. As the last sliver of sun dipped below the horizon, she turned and walked away, in the opposite direction, until she too disappeared.